Today we are talking about the pros and cons of extreme failure in D&D right here on 20 Sides Weekly.
What's up, Matt? I am so glad that we are finally back in this realm. The month of May for us was just wild.
I missed you. You missed me.
Yes, absolutely. But we got some things done in the midterm. And so glad to be back here with everybody for 20 Sides Weekly. First and foremost, before we get started on this awesome topic, there's a podcast that I really want you to let the people know about.
Oh, that would be the 20 Sides podcast. It's a live play podcast that is so much better than every live play podcast you've ever listened to in the history of live play podcasts. There's energy. The players stay in character the majority of the show. The show's bite-sized, so you're looking at 35, 40 minutes for it. It's going to be a good experience for you to listen to. You can listen to it on your way to work, as you're crying, thinking about going to work, or as you're finally relaxing on your way back home from work. You can listen to it on your commute. So check out 20 Sides Weekly wherever you listen to your podcast, or you can listen right here on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, Philip, what should they do for that?
If they're on YouTube right now, they can literally just down here, you can click our name where it says 20 Sides, and you can jump in. The podcast is there, raring and ready to go. So here's the funny thing. We're about to hit episode 50, which is pretty incredible. But if you think about it, you know, a lot of podcasts, especially D&D podcasts, for instance, Critical Role, love Critical Role. But if you were going to try to get through 50 episodes of Critical Role, you would
7 years.
You would need, years, good decade. Solid decade.
Literally a decade.
50 episodes. With us,
Benjamin Franklin isn't caught up on Critical Role.
He's not. He tried.
He tried.
It's in the Declaration of Independence, and he couldn't do it. But with us, 50 episodes, you really just need a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And you could be fully caught up. It's the beauty of it. Yep. But speaking of our podcast, one of the things that we love to do in the 20 Sides podcast is lean in to these extreme failures. Yes. So, Matt, from the DM perspective, give us some of that insight on these extreme failures.
Yeah, for me, it's one of my favorite things to hear a roll and then to see somebody's head just sink, or to see them just shake their head like, oh, Lord, this is about to be bad. And they rolled like a 1, maybe like a 2 or a 3. But like if they rolled a nat 1, like they feel it in their heart. And as a DM, you can go so many different ways with that roll. You can either make it comedic, like if you rolled a 1 in battle, maybe it causes the player to fall, or the character to fall, I should say. Maybe the player falls too at the table because they're so distraught about rolling a 1. Maybe the character falls and they drop their weapon, and the goblin like literally hops onto them the next round. If they're trying to sneak by guards, maybe they're clanking their armor and they slip and run into a tree or something of that sort. Really lean into the comedic aspect of the 1 if that's how your table rolls. Or you can flip it and go the exact opposite direction and make it really, really an intense moment. Like if you're going for death saves and you roll a 1, you have to play that up as a DM, because that's immediately 2 failures. You're going to take one of your monsters and maybe they see the character writhing on the floor on death's door, and you as a DM describe maybe the Minotaur grabs his hoofs and scrapes him across the ground, and he is going to be gunning for that character if there's not a player that can do something. And so now the players are really trying to figure out, how do I protect this character on the ground? Do I don't have a healing potion. I'm a fighter, but the Minotaur's up after me. What do I do? But because you rolled that nat 1, you've got to lean into that. So like for me, it's like one of those 2 extremes. I'm either going to try to make a really funny moment for the party, or a really, really intense moment. And so if maybe the characters are going into a Mind Flayer's lair and they're trying to sneak in, but somebody rolls a nat 1, the mind flayers all turn and look, and I'm going to really play that up and make all of the players at the table scared to death about what's going to happen next. If it's combat, you're going to try to play that up. So really play it up one way or the other. But players really need to understand, like, you've got to lean into it as a player. DM's got to really play up those nat 1s, just like you'd play up a nat 20. People cheering for nat 20s. Your DMs, you get to cheer for the nat 1s. So make sure you play those up. And players, so Philip, thinking about players rolling a nat 1, like, one, how does that make you feel when you roll that nat 1? How do you, like, want that to play out from a DM's perspective? And like, just tell me about that experience for you.
Yeah. And that's what I think. It's so funny because it's like you're saying, a lot of it's situational, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are we in role play and I'm trying to convince someone to do something and I hit that nat 1 and it's just like, yeah, well, okay. I just wasted my time with that. Yeah. Right. Or, if it's investigation, there's a lot of times that we like, one of my favorite things to do is to say something like, no, I don't see anything. I have no idea what's here. I can't, because I've hit a nat 1 or a 2 or something that I know that's what's about to come to me. In battle though, it's a whole different thing, because especially if you're saying something like, I'm rolling a Constitution save, or there's something that I know, okay, this is about to really get me, and I just hit a 1.
Oh yeah.
And that's totally like, and for me, it's that like, air taken out of you, like what did you say it was, like a 5% chance or whatever it is that you roll that number. And so, of course, I hit the 1 when it meant the most, right? And now this death cloud is coming at me, and I have nothing, to protect me. And so it's definitely, where those nat 20s, it's like, boom, I hit. Yeah, it's the complete implosion of a nat 1 for the players. But I think it does. What I love about what the DM can do with a failure, and one of the reasons I like that we really lay into them, is because you do get that extreme of something that's happened. And especially in role play, where it's something that's simple, you were going to do this simple thing, you roll a nat 1, and now the DM makes this simple thing that you were going to do the most ridiculous. I think about Ordella and Leo were going to be climbing into an open window. You know what I mean? And they failed their rolls, and so they're just like clumsily trying to get into this window. And I remember you making it out to be like, it looked, they're trying to throw their leg up and they can't, like, and so it just makes it, it makes it hilarious. So how do you come up with that, with those nat 1s? Give me some examples of times that's happened, that as a DM you kind of rolled with it.
Yeah, so I think one of my favorite things to do is like what you said, is like when somebody rolls a nat 1 and letting the player kind of explain what happens. In another instance, very like in the same vein, it may have been the same episode. Ordella's trying to wave at Seven and Yarost to see if they see her, and they both roll. You and Bobby both rolled really, really low, and Bobby, I think, rolled even way lower than you did. And so he's like, I don't see her, I'm looking at clouds. And then he makes the comment, which is one of our favorite comments that has ever been made on the podcast, where he says, that cloud looks like a bunny. And like, that's one of my favorite moments on our podcast, because he rolled so low on his perception check, like he's not even looking in that direction.
Right.
And I think players, and I'll get back to your question here in a second, but like, players have to lean into that and like own it and make it part of the game. Like, don't think I failed necessarily, but think like, what is my character really doing in this situation that it could be a failure? But a lot of the times, the way I'll try to do it is like, one, it's all improv. Like everything, as a DM, it's all improv. But thinking of, if you roll the 1, if it's that bad, like if I'm picking a lock, there's got to be a permanent consequence to your nat 1. If you rolled a 13 and the DC's 14, you just don't pick the lock. If you roll a 1, your lock pick breaks off in it, and you can't try anything else. And so to me, there's got to be some kind of permanent consequence. If I'm in a tavern and I'm a bard and I roll a nat 1 for a performance check of me trying to wow the crowd so that I can then get information from the tavern owner, if I roll a 1, that tavern owner is now pissed that I was so bad at his bar that people left. And he's not giving me any information.
Yeah.
Where if you rolled a 14, maybe you did okay. And he's like, I'll give him a few pieces of information. I'm not going to give him everything I could. But like the 1 to me has to have some type of permanent consequence, even in battle. And I know people argue all the time, like, a 1 shouldn't cause you to, like, I'm not going to make somebody lose their turn, or it's not going to be some kind of dire consequence, like you chopped off your own arm. Now you got to use one arm the rest of the time you're playing, like something like that. But, maybe you slipped and fell. Maybe you were swinging your sword and the kobold somehow threw up his shield and it knocked your sword 10 feet back. And so now you've got to make a decision. Do I run away from him and take an opportunity attack just to pick my weapon back up? Or do I hold my shield up and take the dodge action? So it gives it gives you more to think about as a player. And so rolling that nat 1 to me has to have some kind of permanent consequence. And I think the same thing for a nat 20. Like if you were to roll a nat 20, I would do the same thing. Like maybe you chopped off the kobold's arm and now or you knocked his shield out as you did the damage. And so his armor class lowers. And so when you roll that nat 1 or that 2 to give some type of permanent consequence that isn't really recoverable at that point. Whereas if you would have rolled something in the mid-tier range, you can do something else to kind of get back to success, where the 1 is just like, nah.
You ain't got
it.
Yeah.
You ain't got it.
Love it.
You ain't got it.
Absolutely love it. So here is our hope for you. Our hope for you is that 1, you don't roll any nat 1s, but that...
I hope you roll a lot of nat 1s from the Dungeon Master's perspective.
Well, and so for number 2, if you do roll a nat 1, you lean into it as hard as you absolutely can. Matt, fun. If you were going to give someone, I don't know, somewhere that they could go to maybe hear some examples of people truly leaning into those excessive failures, where would you send them?
I would send them to the 20 Sides podcast, where you could subscribe to our YouTube channel. You could like this video. You could leave us a comment and tell us, like, what's a nat 1 that you've had that was so crazy that you just have to put it in the YouTube comments. That would be cool. Or you could go to wherever you listen to your podcast, search 20 Sides. We are there. Rate us, review us, only if it's a good rating and a good review. Don't leave us a crappy rating.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Why would you do that?
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't do
Leave
that.
us the best review
But
ever.
I am excited to read all of your nat 1 experiences, because those are it typically turns out pretty funny.
Yes.
There are times where it's like the DM took advantage of you, and I'm sorry. But no, definitely put those in the comments. We always respond to those. So can't wait to hear that. And Matt, we will see you next week.
Peace.